Welcome back to the Corner Faster, Get Fast series. We're at Watkins Glen in the Porsche Cayman GT4, and this is 50 laps to get up to speed using the iRacing simulator to help us get ready for the Champ Car Boxster race at Watkins Glen later this month. In the first video, laps 1, 2, 3, we learned the layout, including corner worker stations, runoff areas, pit in and pit out, and the general layout itself. This video, we focus on looking ahead with purpose and actually mapping out our vision, taking some time at slow speed to learn the visual references and cues around Watkins Glen. And that's going to take us a few laps to do, laps 4, 5, and 6, and then we're going to stay on track for laps 7, 8, and 9, and just place the car slightly under the limit at each ideal reference point around the track. So taking some time to dial in our car placement and discipline in and out of each corner around the track. So back to vision. There's 3 components of vision that we'll be focusing on for this video. The first is dialing in our long range vision. And as we go through the corner, this is going to be all of the stuff that goes through our peripheral vision. And I'm not suggesting to stare at it or focus on it directly when we're racing, but it is helpful to take a couple laps and just notice the scenery to basically process the visual noise in and out of each corner more easily as we recognize it and become familiar with it. Then we're going to dial in our exact reference points in and out of each corner, and finally work on our timing to look into the corner before apexing and to pick our vision up before exiting. So we'll slow things down for turn 1, and we can notice just scanning the scenery, the additional runoff area and the stands, the curbing, and the general slope of the hill, how it goes downhill. And in turn 2, we can pick our vision up and notice the billboards, the walls on each side, corner worker station, the fan area on the left and the stands on the right, as well as the catch fence on the left into the billboards, and just try to take all of that in. You can now notice the brake markers on each side into the bus stop, the pavement going straight, sets of curbs all the way through the bus stop, and the catch fence on the far side, as well as the tire wall on the left, flowing into the outer loop here. You can pick up on the trees in the distance and the additional runoff area, the curbing on exit and the short course to the right. We have the Motul sign on the right as we go down into turn 6, pick up some more trees on both sides, fence on both sides, and just a little bit of grass runoff on both sides. As we head into turn 6, noticing the sharp uphill and the forest deep in the distance beyond the grass, the walls on both sides as they close in towards exit. We've got the catch fence on both sides at exit. Just noticing these things to try to orient ourselves in and out of each corner. Now we've got the brake markers, the corner station, the additional runoff into the toe with the fence on the far side, fencing on both sides, and a little bit of extra runoff. Now it's basically blind and off camera. We could see the trees in the distance and then the wall as it starts to close in as we track out. The tiniest strip of extra grass and curbing on the right. Flying into turn 10, we could see the fence keep going in the distance while we turn in and the additional pavement. Finally, the last set of catch fencing, bleachers, and curbing and wall back onto the front straight. Now that we've enjoyed a lap of taking in the scenery, let's focus things a little bit more now on the bumper cam and dial in our exact reference points for each corner. For turn-in, we've got a little bit of extra pavement to the left of the white line at turn-in for turn 1. It gets a little narrower right at turn-in. We've got multiple layers of curbing and a yellow line at the apex, and a few layers of curbing, yellow line, some additional pavement on the exit. We can notice the yellow line change to white just before turn-in for turn 2. We have the yellow line right around the apex curb for turn 2. And we have this access road right here, or a little access stretch of pavement anyway, on the inside of the apex of turn 2. Got the yellow line at the apex of turn 3 and 4. It turns from white to yellow right at the apex for turn 4. Now heading into the bus stop, we'll slow things down a bit. Got the yellow line on the way in. I'm sorry, the white line on the way in, as well as a white line cutting across the track and the thicker white line at the 200 just at turn in. And then coming over the curb, got 4 curbs on the inside. They all kind of look like this, where you've got a yellow line, a lower banked layer of curbing, and then a flat, rougher top layer of curbing. And you can also see the edge of that curbing on the grass on the way in, and just inside of that, the edge of the wall. Noticing again the lower level and the yellow line on the edge of each of the 4 sets of curbing. Now we're into the outer loop, and we've got a seam in the track and the yellow line around the apex. We can see the white line changing to a yellow line and some curbing at track out. Again, it's multiple layers of curbing, the same fashion as the bus stop, except a little lower. Take a look at that up close. You can see you've got banked on the side, a little rougher up top. Now coming into turn 6, we've got a drainage ditch on the right just before turn in. The white line, just a little bit of extra pavement to the right of it. At the apex, we've got a yellow line running along the apex curbing itself. Track out of turn 6, we've got multiple layers of curbing that goes down to a single layer and the yellow line. Coming into 7, the toe, a little bit of extra pavement to the left of the white line. And then we've got the yellow line running around the apex. And then there's the bonus pavement, which we can spot on the exit. And notice where the grass meets the edge of that extra pavement back into the sole of the boot. Heading up into the heel of the boot, turn 8. We have the white line on the left, the yellow line around the apex curb on the right, and then we have the additional pavement, the yellow line, and the curbing that we can spot for the exit. We've got the yellow line on, or the white line on the right, and a little bit of extra pavement per usual. And the yellow line again around the apex curbing on the inside. And we've got quite a bit of extra pavement beyond the yellow line at track out before we get to the curb and the edge of the grass. And now moving up to turn 10. Again, some extra pavement to the right of the white line before turn in, all the way down to the yellow line at apex. And then we've got multi-layer curbs with the yellow line at track out. Our last turn-in point for turn 11, again, some additional pavement to the left of the white line. And then right once we get more additional pavement, that's the time to turn in, cross the yellow pit lane line all the way down to the yellow line that runs along the apex curb. And then we've got the multiple layers of curbing, again, banked, and then flat and rougher up top, and then finally reaching the wall on the outside. Taking some time to look at long range and short range reference points, and now it's time to take a look at our timing of vision, our rhythm, for where we're looking at when in and out of each corner. So generally we want to look 2 reference points ahead. So as we're entering the brake zone, spot the end of that brake zone, and before we turn in, look at the apex. So we should have already at this point sized up the corner and visually tracked our trajectory into that apex. And now as soon as our path towards the apex is established, just finished trail braking, take a look up and find the exit curbing. On the way into turn 2, look towards the apex right here before we actually reach the turn-in point. And then as soon as the car is working its way into turn 2, pick the vision up and notice the additional pavement running up into the hill of the S's. Right here, we have to imagine the end of the curb that's just out of sight, but it is at this point, right as we're finishing turn 2, that we need to try to look all the way through the end of that apex curb on turn 3. And at this point, as soon as we're turned in and working the car along the apex curb for turn 3, we need to pick our vision up, notice that gap in the catch fence, and start to imagine and visualize our trajectory into turn 4. And as soon as it's visible, just as we crest the sharpest peak of the S's, we can see as we continue to push uphill slightly the apex curb of turn 4, and we want to spot that as soon as it comes into view. Now moving up to the bus stop, we want to size up our brake zone, and at this point, even glance into the apex curb, and because it's such a quick brake zone that we're turning in pretty much right away. And as soon as we have the trajectory into the first curb, we want to spot the pavement on the far side of the first curb and spot the second curb. And as soon as the car lands on the far side of the first curb and we're starting to turn back to the left, pick the vision up and notice really the true apex of the bus stop, which is the third curb, or really the second curb on the left. And as we power into that apex, final apex curb becomes visible. Pick the vision up and spot that curb before finally tracking out. And even before we reach that curb, you can continue to push the vision ahead, noticing the additional pavement and all the space we have all the way out to that tire wall on the left. Now that we've tracked out of the bus stop, we want to look deep into turn 5, really looking in and around the corner at that apex curb, anticipating and trying to pick up on the corner worker station as it comes into view, and then finally spot the exit curb as soon as that comes into view down and around the hill. Lining up turn 6, we want to spot well in advance the drainage ditch. This is our turn-in point, and then look in and around the apex. Because it's blind, we're not going to be able to see the true apex for a little bit, so we just want to keep looking as far ahead as we can, noticing the end of the catch fence on the right as we get down to the apex. I'm going to spot the corner worker station, which is an indication that it's almost time to track out all the way. And finally, that exit curb as soon as it comes into view. Turn 6, the reference points are not visible in time, so we have to really imagine their locations and become familiar with really finding them in the dark. Coming into the toe, we want to look into the corner now, and as soon as the trajectory is established, pick the vision up the hill, off the apex and around the corner, and try to find that exit, looking for that additional strip of pavement as soon as it's visible, right here on the left. Down the straightaway into the heel, we want to size up the brake zone just over the crest and then look into the apex, tracking our trajectory down to the curb. And at this point, we're pretty much established with our arc and rotation into the apex. It's time to pick the vision up and notice the pavement beyond the apex curb and start to try to find, as soon as it's visible, the exit curb on the left. Now we're heading into the left-handed off-camber corner, and we want to look into the corner now before turning in, really back here just a little bit. Before the end, I'm going to notice the additional pavement on the right, to the right of the white line, and before that ends, we want to be looking at the apex curb towards the inside. And now right here, as soon as we cross the crown of the road and the car's tracking in towards the apex, we want to look as far along the apex curb as is visible, trying to spot the pavement on the far side of it. And once we can see the corner worker structure, just beyond that, we should be able to find the start of the exit. And it's at this point where we're spotting our track out. Just before we crest, spotting it as soon as we can see it. And now we're heading into the final two corners, and the vision's constantly moving here, looking into the corner now. And at this point, picking the vision up and finding the exit curb. And as soon as we're tracking out, spotting the turn in for turn 11. We're going to keep some steering wheel in the car. And it's at this point where we're lining up turn in. We don't want to stare too much at the turn in point, just noticing with our vision where our trajectory is and if we're going to line it up, and then quickly transition the vision towards the apex so we can get the arc right and the flow of the momentum right, settling on the left just briefly before turning in. And as soon as we get it turned in, spot the track out all the way to the wall on the left. Having a long time to make adjustments to that trajectory towards the exit. So that last lap wraps up our focus on vision, laps 4, 5, and 6. And these next 3 laps, 5, 6, and 7, are some homework. It's a bit of an exercise, and it's a simple one. Basically, place the car at each of those ideal specific reference points. Maintaining vision, looking ahead in time around the whole track, but basically nailing each apex, turning in from the far side, and letting the momentum carry the car all the way out to those exact track out points. That's the goal of the next 3 laps, and we don't have to ride along for all 3, but really the whole point is to place the car exactly where we intend or slow down until it's easy to do so. Seems like a pretty simple exercise, but it's definitely easier said than done. So feel free to take as many laps as is needed to try to get things under control until you're able to place the car pretty easily in and out of each corner. And so with that wraps up laps 7, 8, and 9. And we're now done nearly with the first 10 laps of 50 laps to get up to speed. Stick around for the next video where we start to push things a little bit more and find the limit of grip available in each tire, work out our gear selection, and shaping each corner to carry the most amount of momentum out of each of these corners at Watkins Glen and on the long straightaways. That's it for now. Thanks for watching.